waking up, getting dressed, and looking in the mirror. A normal morning routine. But does it include looking at yourself and feeling absolutely miserable? According to YouGov American, 12% of America's population says that that's how they feel most of the time. And 2% say that they hate themselves all of the time. That statistic says that 46,130,000 people hate themselves either most of the time or all the time. That is a lot of people. And that's just in America. Think about this from a worldwide point of view. The numbers would increase significantly. You see, all of these people in this largely alarming statistic are suffering in silence. It's fine to talk about how many people are dying from COVID or police brutality, but we don't talk about the people wasting away from eating disorders or ending their lives because they feel unworthy of love. That is not okay. Self-hatred is something we need to talk about. People raise awareness for cancer or Alzheimer's, but no one ever does anything about the self-hatred epidemic. How do we fix this problem? We learn who self-hatred affects, the causes of it, and why we as a country need to work to fix it. To begin, self-hatred can affect anyone. People tend to cover up their pain and hurt and make everyone think that they're fine. At least I know I do. I play it off as some joke that isn't scary or worrying. That way everyone thinks I'm fine. I do that because no one talks about self-hatred due to the fact that it's looked down upon. You aren't supposed to hate yourself because you're perfect just the way you are, or you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Well, let me tell you right now that what you say has no effect on the people that feel that way about themselves. People say it's just low self-esteem or a little insecurity. But no, it is full-on self-loathing and hatred. The definition of self-hatred is a severe dislike of oneself. People tend to assume that women are the only ones affected by self-hatred because they show how strongly they dislike themselves. But in reality, men are suffering too. The world puts pressure on women to be skinny and pretty, but it also puts the pressure on men to be buff and handsome. The world's strong take on feminism also tends to leave men in the dust, causing people to think of men as disgusting. It puts all men in one category and makes them think that they really are the way the world says they are. It makes them think that they really are the way the world says they are. Unfortunately, men aren't typically accepted if they show insecurity or emotion because men are supposed to be tough and strong. Once we understand who self-hatred affects, we need to understand the causes of it. One of the ways we can do that is by using social media positively, not negatively. Use social media positively, not negatively. The standards of our world are alarmingly realistic and basically make humans on this earth feel like they're fun one way or another. Let's look at the models and celebrities out there. The females are between 5 feet, 10 inches, and 100 pounds. You can literally see the outline of every bone in their body. Then there are the males who are 6 foot 2 inches tall, have solid abs, and a perfectly chiseled jawline. How is that even a remotely realistic vision of a human? People come in all shapes and sizes, and no matter how hard you try, you can't change your entire body composition. Do you really think any of those models and celebrities are healthy? The answer to that question is no. Here are some of those unhealthy model stories. The New York Post wrote about the tactics models use to stay fit. Sandy Peterson, a 27-year-old blonde, was a model in the industry that was 5 feet 11 inches and 100 pounds, a severely unhealthy weight for an adult woman. When Peterson first got to New York, she was so desperate to get a job that her diet on a daily basis consisted of 20 cigarettes and a cup of coffee. Little else. She claims it hurt just to sit down. Now that she's a healthy 122 pounds, she's often told that she's too fat or even obese and doesn't get many castings. Peterson once saw a 16-year-old model who ate cotton balls just to survive. She shared another story of a model she had lived with who popped so many laxatives she barricaded herself in the bathroom for 12 hours, screaming in agony. Does that sound like a healthy version of what a human should look like? I don't think so. Yet so many people don't fit the world's standards and hate themselves for it. Other causes of self-hatred can include environmental circumstances, such as hypercritical parents, or personality traits, such as perfectionism. Jody Clark, a licensed professional counselor, noted that self-hatred can also be caused by false expectations, past traumas, and several learned behaviors. False expectations happen when our expectations of self are so high that they're unachievable by any human. So when we fall short, we feel devastated. We aren't worthy of being loved or valued by others. Past traumas can include sexual, physical, or emotional abuse. After this abuse and trauma, these children try to make sense of their world and may develop a narrative that makes them feel as if they're unworthy of loving. Finally, a learned behavior that can lead to self-hatred is attempts to please others. We've learned that meeting the expectations of others can help us feel connected to them. However, if we fall short, we may feel devastated. We aren't worthy of being loved or valued by others. Once we understand the causes of self-hatred, we need to learn how to fix this problem. We need to learn how to fix this problem. One of the ways we can do that is by using social media positively, not negatively. Empowerment can go so far. When someone sees an empowering or positive quote online, they're going to ignore it. Don't give up, because the more they see these empowering or positive things, the more they will truly believe them. Posting or commenting on someone else's work or picture something uplifting can literally save a life. Along with empowerment should come awareness. Self-hatred is something that's not widely talked about, but needs to be. People are wasting away from this awful mentality, and it's not okay. People raise awareness for cancer or Alzheimer's, but no one ever does anything about the self-hatred epidemic. How do we fix this problem? We talk, make signs, post on social media. There are so many ways to raise awareness, just like anything else. I'm telling you, speak out and the world will change. Mentality is a huge factor in many aspects of life, especially when it comes to self-hatred. Our world needs to change the mentality that our value comes from beauty. The beauty of kindness is what's important. Our world says if you aren't perfectly shaped or your appearance isn't tip-top, that you're worth nothing and no one will love you. In truth, that's not what matters at all. Finally, we need to develop self-compassion. A great way to develop self-compassion is to think about how you treat a friend or loved one. Would you beat them for making a mistake? Or remind them that no one's perfect? Kristen F., PhD, explains. Instead of mercilessly judging or criticizing yourself for various inadequacies or shortcomings, instead, we need to love ourselves and show compassion. Maya Angelou once said, "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody." And this quote rings so true. And when things like that are said, they can start to solve the self-hatred epidemic. So next time you see someone struggling with liking themselves, think about how dangerous that can be and what you can do to help. If everyone pitches in to do this, we can make the 14% of Americans that hate themselves 0.
We live in a judgmental world. We judge others by their appearance, by their actions, and sadly by their abilities, or lack thereof. School can be an evil place for students who aren't judged as normal, who might have disabilities that make learning a challenge. From the poem ADD, DD, DDD by Brian Wheelard, and from the solo Dyslexic Dave by David Ralph, I present you a program, Don't Judge Me. There I was, about to enter school for the first time. I was so excited I could really hold my energy in, and I was ready. Well, but then things changed. They changed in the worst possible way. Now I want all of you, big boys and girls, to read the ABCs in front of you and then copy it down on a piece of paper. Yes, ABCs. That's for slow kids. I hurried through and I was the first one done. Finished. David, I'm very disappointed. You didn't take your time while your letters were mixed around. No, they're not. I'm right. Look again. David, your D is a P, and your P is a D. And is that supposed to be a Q? Everything is turned around. Then I overheard the teacher whisper to a roommate, a word I didn't recognize at first, but I would soon know all too well. This was my first label. From here on out, I would be known as the stupid kid that couldn't read well, the dumb kid that mixed things around. I was known affectionately as Dyslexic Dave. 9 was a dramatic shift, as school became something I deplored. I found my teachers didn't like me. When I finished, I became bored. I was yelled at for asking stupid questions while out of my seat, or for doodling bunnies with wings on the edge of my worksheets. It was then I first heard the whispering, you see, of the meaningless letters ADD, DD, DDDD. Up to this point, I had made straight A's. Test him for gifted is what they'd say. But for some reason in 3rd grade, Mr. Roth labeled me trouble. I started to fail, despite my efforts being doubled. At this point, I hated Mr. Roth, and I hated school. I hated my classmates for labeling me the fool. I hated my parents, who were beginning to fold for not seeing me as me, but as what they'd been told. All through school, my teachers would do the best they could to make special arrangements for me. But with 30 other kids in the room, I quickly became the cliche kid that slipped through the cracks. The worst part about school was homework. I could sit, listen to a teacher lecture, and be able to recite back to you exactly what they said. However, when it came to doing written work, I always failed. I could see the escape route for my imprisoned mind, but confused clutter made it impassable. I tried everything that I could to hide the fact that I couldn't read right, but inevitably my inaccuracy would shine through. Spastic me. I have ADD, DD. I should have stopped after just 2, but unspent energy made me press on through and add, with much built-up glee, the additional 6. I needed these. I have been diagnosed with this academic quarter with attention deficit disorder. Teachers all echoed I just couldn't sit still, wanting to shove my mouth full of little round pills. My failures to listen to boring lectures while in my seat caused the school psychologist to repeat, I have ADD, DD. My parents found it at first a fearing decision made in haste. Claiming my excess creativity was a refreshing splash of color in a world filled with white paste. But with 11 educated minds claiming my world must be closed in, I was lovingly pumped full of the choice drug, Ritalin. Immediately I ceased to move. As my thoughts became clouded, I was lost in a bland planet. My ideas and life had been shrouded. My God, what had happened to what used to be me? Please give me back my ADD, DD. I was the kid with the concert frown. I shuffled my feet and I stuck close to lockers to avoid being talked to. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and no one wanted to talk to me. Not even the office staff liked me very much. I was constantly in the office asking for my locker combination. 9-13-26. 9-13-26. Do you think you can get it right this time, David? Or let me write it down for you so you don't forget. Every time I went to my locker, it was a new adventure. The numbers became 6-13-62. Sometimes they mixed around to 26-31-6. My disorder seemed to get worse when I was in a hurry, or my mind was clouded with the fear that if I screw up my locker combination again, I'll be tardy again. My problem became a vicious cycle. Tardy again, I see. David, this makes 3 days in a row. I guess an hour detention will remind you that you need to get to class on time. My 4th grade teacher crippled me with the words within a week of ADD, DD. It seems I learned at an early age. You are judged quickly on what others say. The awesome, creative kid that was in me was never given a chance to let them see that I was smart, inquisitive, and fun, amusing, and spectacularly witty with puns. I can impersonate teachers too perfectly. They found this annoying and dissuaded me. Apparently all these gifts didn't apply, and I was told to stay inside during recess every single day. Punished for not acting the way my teacher all wanted me, cast into a mold pumping out the boring kidget that every school sold. Within weeks, I was getting special help from someone that was an expert with dealing with kids like me. They called this room the resource room. Everyone attention please. We have a new student that will be visiting us from time to time. This is David. Let's make David feel at home here. How in the world was I supposed to feel at home in this place? I had heard stories about this room before, but I never thought them to be true. I thought when people were as bad off as some of these kids, they sent them away to hospitals or just ended them. They all approached me in different manners and in different languages seemingly, but they all had one thing in common. They were all genuine. Then there was Pete. Pete face was dismembered and scar tissue ran across his body. He bragged that he had an IQ of 79, but the first words out of his mouth were so insightful and so ingenious, I knew we had to be friends. I have dyslexia too. It's okay though. Someday you'll be as smart as me. I guess I should have been offended, but his laugh was so contagious I couldn't help but laughing myself. Turns out the old saying, laughter is the best medicine, is true. I got used to my time in the special room. I only needed to visit when a reading assignment was needed or I needed more attention with my math, but more and more I looked for any excuse to visit my favorite group of special kids. School was starting to change. I was learning more. I was seen as someone that happened to have a disorder rather than a disordered person. I was having fun, and most importantly, I was making friends. They were the only people I've ever known to see a real person rather than a disorder. Then Miss Redding changed everything. I wanted everyone to know that Pete will not be coming back to visit. He's gone to a better place where his laughter will live forever. I didn't understand her figurative language, but I understood almost immediately when she ran out of the room in tears. The next morning, I picked up the paper that I never read. However, today was different. On the front cover was a picture of Pete with a big, beautiful smile. I made out the headline, "Local boy beaten to death." Why is everyone picking on me? I'm a victim of ADD, DD, DDDD. My God, they had me saying it. Already excuse documented in books. Once I thought I was different, in a good sort of way. Now I realize I'm disabled, as others would say. I guess I need help to stop being me so I can cease my dreaming and stay in my seat. It's easier that way, I suppose. For my teachers, my parents, the kids in the hall, I finally surrendered. Swallowing more than a pill. You see, I swallowed my future, my life, my personality. I became the person everyone wanted all along. It's easier to teach me when I don't respond. It's easier to teach me. It's easier. Mellow, serene, that's me. Sedated, I'm cured of my ADD. After attending the funeral of my best friend, I made a vow that I would beat my disorder. I would never let anyone judge me because of my dyslexia. I would never feel sorry for myself for having this problem, and I would never feel sorry for myself when others pointed it out. So one day, when I meet Pete again, I can say that I had dyslexia. It's okay though, someday you'll be as smart as me.
Nuns, God bless them, really. Despite the barrage of brutal beatings, I still have a deep affection, though they would tell you I've been known to lie. A lot, but not about big things, but little things like, I don't know, brutal beatings and having a deep affection. Those problem children in school, we all know them, but sometimes it takes a special teacher to make all of the difference. This is The Lifesaver Man by Brian Miller. I was a problem child. Loud, coupled with confidence, intelligence, and an energy abundance. Oh, the nuns. I give them credit. They didn't kill me. Had they not have been nuns, well, I overheard two talking in the bathroom. I paused. I heard my name. Ellie. Freeze. Ellie. You think if we prayed for her soul, then killed her, we would be in the clear? Laughter. More laughter. Now, we just have 2 weeks before Christmas break. Hate to kill her that close to the holidays. More laughter. I couldn't believe it. Nuns plotting the murder of a 12-year-old girl and laughing. God, how they laughed. Sorry. The remainder of the week, when not isolated from the rest of the class due to nun issues, they would call them Ellie issues. But I assure you, I did nothing wrong. A victim of circumstances. I'm innocent, I tell you, innocent. I kept my ears on alert. Thursday, I heard the end of the word leap. I was tuned in. However, the word I mistook for Ellie was the end of the word silly, as in, please quit the silly crying. We only have one day left. It's just so hard to love her, guide her, but she just won't stop. I have horrible thoughts that a Christian person should not have. A nun shouldn't hate, but this is how I feel sometimes. Ellie just won't stop. More crying. It was Sister Mary Agnes, my favorite. I really loved her. I couldn't believe it. I had caused a nun to cry, to hate me. I listened to her sobs. Overwhelmed, I stumbled back into the stall, closed the door. Emotions I had never felt surged. Hearing her say the words hate and my name Ellie had power. Closing the lids, I sat and cried and cried and cried. Never in the history has so much water departed from the eyes of its creator. On Friday, we were called to the cafeteria. Sister Mary Agnes was out front. 25 2-inch by about 3-inch boxes, and one large 2 feet by 3 feet box with a bow sat before her. Our eyes met, just for a moment. Yesterday changed me, but I still had some lessons to learn. Children, line up to select your... I leapt before she could say presents. Before we laid an obstacle course of small creatures, classmates, bent on capturing my prize. I took Taylor Von Pelt by the collar, slowing him just enough to slip up to the top spot. Number 1, head of the line. Normally, I would have had a great sense of accomplishment for my great feat, but I looked up, 12 nun eyes were staring at me. Then, the oddest thing happened. They smiled. All of them. They didn't move. They sat there, tight-lipped smiles. As I slowly reached for the big present, they stopped looking at me, looked at each other, still smiling. Somehow this triumphant victory lost all of its triumphant feel. Soon, everybody was seated with boxes before them. The nuns gave the word, and all the kids tore into their boxes. My classmates each held up an identical, glistening, silver St. Christopher necklace. Soon, all eyes turned towards me as I slowly unwrapped the golden paper, lifted off the lid. There was a card on top, but I just tossed that to the side. The box seemed empty as I dug my hand in, frantic. My fingers finally sought something solid. Finally, bottom left corner, pay dirt! I took a hold and pulled the item free from the opening. It took me a moment to realize what it was. It was a man made from rolls of lifesavers, tied together with yarn. With the head was poster board on a popsicle stick with the face of Jesus. I didn't really know how to react. A couple kids snickered. I was mad, embarrassed. Read the card, Ellie. It was Sister Mary Agnes. I took the card and opened it. Ellie. It had my name, the card that was sealed in the box, my name, in Sister's handwriting. Ellie, there are so many lessons in life to learn, each a lesson from the one who taught it. My gift to you is not the candy doll, but rather who he represents. I made him for you, a gift from my own hands, a gift of love. The Lifesaver Man is a symbol, a reminder that no matter what you do, say, don't say, he loves you. Loved even when you push people away. Forgiven even when you do things unforgivable. Always there, even when you think you need no one. Ellie, we need a lifesaver every once in a while. God bless. Sister Mary Agnes. Our eyes met. She smiled. Suddenly, it all made sense. I realized I was triumphant. Thanking her, I smiled.
Guest diary, 1942.
There were certainly some rounds to be made that year, from Poland to Africa to Russia and back again. You might argue that I make the rounds no matter what year it is, but sometimes the human race likes to crank things up a little. They increase the production of bodies and their escaping souls. A few bombs usually do the trick, or some gas chambers, or the chit-chat of faraway guns. If none of that finishes proceedings, it at least strips people of their living arrangements, and I witness the homeless everywhere. They often come after me as I wander through the streets of molested cities. They beg me to take them with me, not realizing I'm too busy as it is. Your time will come, I convince them, and I try not to look back. At times, I wish I could say something like, "Don't you see, I've already got enough on my plate," but I never do. I complain internally as I go about my work, and some years, the souls and bodies don't add up. They multiply. When we are children, we admire Superman and Batman as heroes of epic proportion. As we grow and realize that they're fictional characters, we then see heroes in the people around us, such as the medical professionals at the forefront of the COVID pandemic, firefighters that climbed the Twin Towers during 9/11 to save lives and lose their own, or cancer patients that battle painful treatments day in and day out. The list goes on and on. All of these heroes are human, just like you and I. As we are human, we are forced to make tough decisions that will either define us as a hero or a coward. One such situation that made many people make a tough decision like this was World War II and the actions of the Nazis. Meet Death, whose work was immense during this time, as well as two men, both forced to make a tough decision, to live or die. One man chose death and is considered a hero. The other chose life and considers himself a coward. From the novels The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, The Nazi Doctors by Robert J. Lipton, and the poem The Man with the Broken Fingers by Carl Sandburg, I present a program, Heroes and Cowards. So many humans. They harass my memory. I see them tall on their heaps, all mounted on top of each other. They say that war is death's best friend, but I must offer you a different point of view on that one. To me, war is like the new boss who expects the impossible. He stands over your shoulder, repeating one thing incessantly. He says, "Get it done. Get it done." So you work harder. You get the job done. The boss, however, does not thank you. He asks for more. I survived the death camp at Auschwitz in Poland. I should be dead, but I was given the opportunity to live, and I took it. I'm a doctor, and prisoner doctors were needed to assist the Nazis. And so, to save myself, I took the oath. I pledged allegiance to the devil himself. I swear to you, Adolf Hitler, as the Führer and Chancellor of the Reich, loyalty and bravery, obedience unto you and to my superiors, appointed by you, obedience unto death, so help me God. For God has nothing to do with what happened to the prisoners of Auschwitz. I arrived there in September of 1941. When we came out of the train, there was an SS officer telling the men to move to one side and the women to the other. And while I was standing there, I heard someone saying, "Doctors, come out of the ranks." And I went out, and they put me in a little group to the back. If I would not have heard the call for doctors, I'm certain I would not be alive right now. I owe my life to being a doctor, and I owe being a doctor to my parents. I never thanked them for this, and the feeling of guilt is so overwhelming, because my parents saved me from the gas chamber. We stood in our little group for 1 hour, not talking, just trying to see where our families had been taken. And then someone was telling me that my father, who was still a young man, had been taken to the work group. But my wife, my child, my mother, my parents-in-law, my sister, they were all killed. And you know, I'm ashamed to tell you, but I still wanted to live. It's impossible for me to understand and even more difficult to accept. I heard my whole family was gassed, but 5 minutes later when they called for the doctors to line up, I went to save myself. They're strange, those wars, full of blood and violence,
but also full of stories that are equally difficult to fathom. It's true, people will mutter. I don't care if you don't believe me. It was the fox that saved my life. Or they died, one on either side of me, and I was left standing there, the only one without a bullet between my eyes. Why me? Why me and not them? The man with broken fingers lives and speaks a sign language of lost fingers. From a son of Norway who slipped the Gestapo nets, the Nazi patrols. The story comes as told among those now in Norway. Shrines in their hearts they have for this nameless man, who refused to remember names, the Nazi wanted. Tell us those names. Who are they? Talk. Names, now, or else. And the man faced them, looked them in the eye, and hours passed, and no names came. Hours, and no names for the Gestapo. They told him they would break him, as they had broken others. The rubber hose slammed around face and neck, the truncheon handing pain with no telltale marks, or the distinction of a firing squad and death in a split second. The Gestapo considered these and decided for him something else again. Tell us those names. Who are they? Talk. Names, now, or else. And no names came. Over and over, and no names. So they broke the little finger of the left hand. 3 fingers came next, and the left thumb bent till it broke. Still no names, and there was a day and a night for the rest and thinking it over. Then again, the demand for names, and he gave them the same silence. And the little finger of the right hand felt itself twisted back and back till it hung loose from a bleeding socket. 3 more fingers crashed and splintered one by one, and the right thumb back and back into shattered bone. And all of this was halfway. There was more to come. The Gestapo wit and craft had an aim. They wanted it known in Norway that Gestapo can be horrible. They wanted a wide whispering of fear of how the Nazis handle those who won't talk or tell names. We give you one more chance to cooperate. Yet he had no names for them. His locked tongue, Norwegian will pitted against Nazi will. His pride and faith in a free man's way. His welcoming death rather than do what they wanted. They brought against this their last act of fury, breaking the left arm at the elbow, breaking it again at the shoulder and socket. And when he came to, in a flicker of opening eyes, they broke the right arm, first at the elbow, then the shoulder. But by now, of course, he had lost all memory of names, even his own. It's probably fair to say that in all the years of Hitler's reign, no person was able to serve the Fuhrer as loyally as me. A human doesn't have a heart like mine. The human heart is a line, whereas my own is a circle. And I have the needless ability to be in the right place at the right time. The consequence of this is that I'm always finding humans at their best and their worst. I see their ugly and their beauty, and I wonder how the same thing can be both. It took me a while to realize that as a doctor, I would be expected to take part in all of it, all the atrocities of this death camp. I was sent to assist the Nazi doctors with the most medical of all their killing methods, the phenol injections. Patients were brought into a treatment room and administered a drug by a physician in a white coat. We had syringes, phenol, and cotton. Everything you needed for an injection. There was also alcohol, as with ordinary, and rubber tourniquets. Each prisoner was led in and told to place his right hand on the table to hold the arm steady, just as with a regular intravenous injection. Then the tourniquet was placed on the arm to make the pain visible. Then they would rub alcohol on the spot just under the elbow, and using the correct technique, the phenol would be injected. The prisoners died within minutes. Before long, the technique for the injection was changed by the Nazi doctors. The phenol was injected directly into the heart. It was more efficient, you see? People died much faster that way, almost instantaneously. I would bring the prisoners in, 2 at a time, and sit them down on a chair. Then I'd have them place their right arm up to cover their eyes and the left arm raised sideways in a horizontal position. The idea was to thrust the chest out as far as possible, so the heart was easily accessible. I watched as the needles on the fatal syringes were thrust directly into the hearts of the seated prisoners. And they would fall over immediately. I want to tell you about September 28th, 1942, because I've never been able to tell anybody about it before. I was removing bodies after the fatal injections, and when I came back into the room, my father was standing in the doorway. He'd always been such a fine, strong man, but he looked like a walking skeleton, just like all the others. He looked at me with a sort of reproachful, beseeching expression, sort of saying, "It can't be possible that you stand here and I'm like this." And when I didn't move or say anything, he looked at me with such disappointment. There was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do. I was more afraid for myself than for my father. And I cried as I carried his body to the trenches. There are people who have hated each other for centuries. But these people, these Nazis who kill people so systematically, only because they belong to another race, that was a different world. And I was a part of that world. I survived Auschwitz, but not as a hero. I was the worst kind of coward. You see, in the dark times I've experienced since my release, my eyes have been opened and I begin to see. The story is not ended. It has not yet become history. This world still harbors hatred and intolerance, and these evils have a life of their own. They could break out of their hiding again tomorrow. In you, or in me.
I grew up on my family's farm. As a child, I was constantly outside, no matter what the weather was. In the winter, my siblings and I would build a snowman or a giant snow fort. In the spring, we'd play in all the muddy puddles. In the summer, we'd either play in our swimming pool or on our slip and slide. And in the fall, we'd rig up our whole yard and jump in the giant piles of leaves. My best childhood memories are from playing outside with my siblings or helping my dad on the farm. However, most kids are not this lucky. The current generation spends less time than ever before outside. In a study done of 800 mothers by the Manhattanville College professors, 3/4 recall going outside daily as a child. However, only 1/4 said that their child goes outside even once a week. This is a huge problem, and it must be stopped. The future of our children could depend on it. Today, I will show you why children are not going outside enough, why they should go outside, and give some tips on how to get kids outside. To begin, there are many reasons as to why children are not going outside. One obvious one is technology. Stanford Health reported that children spend, on average, 4 to 7 minutes of unstructured outdoor play, compared to the 7 or more hours in front of a screen. There are also many other reasons, including safety concerns, the population shifting away from rural areas, and in some ways, environmentalism. Kids can no longer go outside and build a treehouse because they might harm a tree. They can't go hunting or fishing because they might kill something. And they can't wander around and explore nature because it won't look good on their college resume. Sadly, this is having an adverse effect on our youth. My sophomore year of high school, I started working at a local daycare. About a year ago, we got a 3-year-old boy. His first day was rough. I would give him a toy, and he just stared at it like he'd never seen it before in his life. He was hunched over because his bones had developed in a position of looking down at a screen all day. When we went outside, he couldn't keep up with the other kids. He didn't know how to play in a toy car, ride a tricycle, or even run around with them. He barely talked, and when he did, you could barely understand what he was saying. This left him playing alone for weeks. Even now, after working with him for a year, he is still behind in some areas. This is one personal experience that I've had. There are many more out there, and many that are much worse. There are 5 developmental reasons as to why kids need to go outside. The first is to be physically healthy. There is no better place to be physically active than the outdoors.
Children have plenty of room to run around, jump, and learn new gross motor skills. The next reason is how it affects their emotional, cognitive, and social development. Children who play outside are more curious and self-directed. Whenever a child plays outside with another person, it encourages them to learn communication skills, cooperation, and organizational skills. Being outside also improves one's sensory skills. In an optometry and vision science study, it showed that children who play outside daily have better distance vision. This is leading to a new trend of preschools being outdoors. When the preschool is outdoors, children get to develop all their senses, unlike when they're in front of the screen, which only develops two, hearing and sight. The next reason as to why children need to go outside is how it affects their attention span. Stanford Health reported that children who play outside daily are more curious and self-directed and can stay on task longer. It also showed that children with ADHD exhibit fewer symptoms when they play outside regularly. The final reason as to why children need to go outside is how it affects their immune system and their happiness. The sunshine activates the pineal gland of the brain. This part of the brain is crucial to having a good immune system. Being out in the sun also increases vitamin D levels. Vitamin D levels, when they are higher, give you a lesser chance of getting a chronic disease and increase your happiness. With all these benefits of being outside, we need to make going outside a priority for children. Finally, the New York Times offers several tips on how to get kids outside. The first is to have an outdoor mindset. You can't just expect to say, hey, go outside and play, and they have this wonderful time. It doesn't work like that. The best way to get kids outside is to go outside with them. Show them that being outside can be fun. If possible, pack a picnic lunch one day. Spend the whole day outside and let the kids get excited. The second tip is to set goals. Start with just 10 or 15 minutes of outdoor time. Slowly increase that time as possible. Let the kids in on it too. Once they enjoy being outside, they won't let you forget that scheduled time. The final tip is to invest in outdoor equipment. Get bicycles, trikes, different types of balls, hula hoops, jump ropes, and anything else kids might be interested in. Let them get excited about going outside. Today I showed you why children are not going outside, why they should go outside, and gave some tips on how to get kids outside. I'm very thankful for my childhood, and I hope that future generations can have the same experience that I did. As stated by Naomi Schaefer, people need to spend less time fearing nature and more time enjoying it. This is your call to action. Get outside and take the kids in your life with you.
The story takes place at a sideboard. A girl longing for her mother's warmth, her mother's love, her mother's touch. This is My Mother's Touch by Lorraine. You've come here to stare at me, to gape, to point, and then to go home with the smug comfort that you'll never end up like me. You wouldn't be saying those things if there was a glass in between. If we were just sitting right next to each other, palm to palm, no glass in between, not knowing what the creature right next to you might do next. Scary, isn't it? Kinda frightening? That if I got close enough just to touch you, Funny thing is, that's all I wanted. Her love, her touch. And did I get that? Well, no. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. You see, I was born on the 13th. They couldn't get me out the natural way, the normal way. So they had to take my mom's pretty white stomach and cut it right down the middle and pull me out. My mother cried for years after I was born, saying, "Well, I wouldn't have had kids if I knew they were going to cut me open." My mother was a pretty little thing, the type the construction workers would lick their lips at, trying to get a taste of sweet honey dripping off her pretty white fingers. I've never had that problem. "Keep your hands to yourself," is what my mother told me when I was 5. I was 5. I was figure planing in the kitchen like normal kids do, right? I was 5. And I reached up for warmth. I reached up for a hug. And as soon as my yellow and red fingers touched her blouse, she pushed me away and screamed. I was gonna soil her blouse, dirty her skin. Funny, isn't it? Growing up, my mother liked to keep her hands to herself. Sometimes I'd misbehave just so she took the smooth side of her palm and slapped me. It stung a little. Yeah, of course it stung a little. But just for a moment, everything was okay. Well, until one day, of course. She was cooking breakfast in the kitchen, just like mothers do every morning, right? And, well, there was a fire. There was a fire in the kitchen, and fires are tricky little things, I promise. And, well, the room rose to smoke. And my mom ran outside screaming, holding her blouse because she didn't want the fire to dirty her skin, just like I did with my yellow and red fingers. Her daughter was up the stairs. And like I said before, fires are tricky little things. And the fire went up the stairs and under the door and on my back and death by a million cuts. The only difference is I didn't die. The firefighters pulled me out and brought me to the hospital. I sat and rotted for 2 months. Under these stupid little bandages, becoming everything my mom thought I was. They finally brought me home. 2 months later, I thought, well, maybe my mom would have to change my bandages. She'd have to touch me. She'd have to love me. She'd have to talk to me, right? Right? She hired a nurse when I got back. A nurse to talk to me, to read to me, to change my bandages, to love me. My mother was the prettiest little thing when she was sleeping. She'd come home from work in her nicest shoes and her prettiest clothes and those perfect pearls. And, well, she'd lay down on the couch. It was still like, and, well, sometimes I would just hold her hand and I would touch her face. I just wanted to be a perfect family just for a little bit, I promise. And one day she came home from work, her brand new shoes and her nicest clothes and the prettiest of pearls, and, well, she laid down on the couch. And she was real still, like she was sleeping, I promise. And I held her hand. And I touched her face and I just held her. And then she woke up. And she started screaming. And you don't want your mom to scream, right? And I just didn't want her to scream anymore, right? And she just kept screaming and I just didn't want her to scream anymore. You don't want your mom to scream, but and then she stopped screaming. She stopped screaming. I just thought she would stop screaming and she wasn't breathing anymore and I didn't want her to stop breathing. I just thought I didn't know what to do, so I just held her hand and I touched her face just so we could be a perfect family one more time, right? And then they took her away in a black bag not long after. Zipped up like a cocoon. They buried her right down the street. And her nicest shoes and her prettiest little dress and the perfect white pearls. And a handprint on her perfect white neck. My handprint on her perfect white neck, and then they brought me here not long after. White walls, white floors, white ceiling, white clothes, pretty white dresses, and, well, here I'm like everybody else, right? Just like everybody else, perfectly, wonderfully made, right? And 2 times a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, right before bed, a nurse comes in. And she feeds me some medicine just through my veins. And well, she has 2 kids of her own. And she holds my hand. She holds my hand and she puts the needle in my arm and she holds it real still. And just for a moment, I finally got everything I've ever wanted. So judge all you want. Maybe it's not my mother, but it's a mother's love, a mother's warmth, a mother's touch.
Sometimes all we want is to be seen, to be loved, but sometimes others can't look past our scars. Kindling by Kathleen Sacrament. She gave me an assignment. My therapist, that is. She told me to write it all down, and the it, of course, was everything that troubled me. I laughed, but she told me to slow down and start small. Irritations, right? But there's so much that's irritating. I'll give you guys a couple things off the list. I'm irritated when I'm running late for work, and the line at Starbucks is longer than usual. I'm standing there, and there's like 8 people in front of me, and when it gets to the last person in front of me, she just stops and stares at the menu board like it's the first time she's ever seen it. And I'm thinking, what could you possibly be thinking about while we're all standing here waiting? But she's just standing there, like she's deliberating over some major life decision when all I want to do is get a grande cold brew and get to work on time. I mean, honestly, I can't make this stuff up. And, well, this sort of goes on to the same list. Let's say this same woman, right? The woman who takes 14 minutes to decide on a tall mocha, she catches my eye as she's leaving the register. And no matter how intensely irritated I am, I smile at her, because I always try to, and she just looks away. You smile at someone at the grocery store, passing on the sidewalk, at a traffic light, and they either just gaze back or look away. And I'm thinking, it takes just a millisecond of your time to move the muscles of your mouth to smile back. But I guess some people, well, I guess a lot of people, can't be bothered to do that. But I always try to. When people look at me, when they do, I don't want to lose that kindness. And as I'm standing here, my canyon of vexing issues is growing longer and longer. And I'm realizing that all these things, these terrible irritants, are about other people. And that worries me, I guess, to think about what other people might put on their list. Would you put a leaky faucet in your guest bathroom on your list? You probably would, but I didn't. I just put people. And then I start to think, I guess, about Matthew. Matthew. Never Matt, always Matthew. I never really asked him why, and honestly, I don't know what this has to do with anything, but Matthew and I saw each other. Well, we dated for almost a year. And I think more than anything, I thought this could fit into a good plan. Because Matthew is a good man. And after a while, you start dating, and then you get around to discussing marriage, and then you get married, and you have kids, and things are set. You don't have to worry about the order of things after that. And he treated me well. He did, but I treated him well, too. I want you to understand that. And about a month ago, we're sitting on the sofa, and Matthew's poured me a glass of wine, thinking, something about this is feeling terribly staged. Thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. He's going to propose to me, but he didn't. What he did propose is that I explained to him. Explain. This is the man that I believed was patient and kind, and suddenly he's using words like distant and aloof. I'm thinking very quickly now that no, that's not it at all. I'm funny and I'm charming, but I don't say those things to him. So they go hot, and I know that I'm boiling over. When I scream at him, I say awful things. I tell him that I don't have to explain. Matthew goes quiet, and he looks at me. You're right. You don't. The next morning, I wake to gray skies, my throat tired from the tears and the yelling, and I was alone. Matthew had taken his things and left. He left a note on the bedside table. I wanted to scream so loud. I wanted to fill the whole house with my words, but there was no one to scream back. And that was irritating. I was irritated, but I would still smile at you on the street. You betcha I would. And my therapist, dear woman that she is, she asked me how it made me feel. So I described this thing. In here. It's all blocked up. There's not enough vacancy in here. I can't fix it. She tells me that they can. I don't know. Can I? It's like that bomb that went off when I was 13. She asked me about being 13, and I hate this. I do. It feels like I'm being pushed underwater, and I'm kicking and I'm fighting to come up for air. But I'm 13. My mother remarried when I was little, and my father was gone, non-existent, whatever. But my mother's husband, my stepfather, Nicholas, he was always there. My track meets, my school plays, whatever. It was there. I loved him so much. I'm 13. My mother sits me down at the kitchen table and she tells me that she knows. I have no idea what she's talking about, obviously, but she keeps going on and on about how she knows, and that I wanted it, and I'm as good of a woman now, and that I asked for it. I try to answer her, but she hits me across the face until I'm bleeding, and I can't get away. She was not kind. Wondering if it's related. There's usually an explanation. 2 nights later, I woke to my bedroom, filled with smoke, choking with flames, like kindling, burned to the flames. They'd come in to get me. My mother was the one that started the fire. About 60% of my body was covered in 3rd-degree burns. The worst around my face. Little kids in grocery stores will say to their mom, "Look, Mommy, look at that girl's face. What's wrong with her?" I want to say back to them, "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know what's wrong with me." Sometimes our scars don't heal. Sometimes I just want someone to smile back. You might if you knew. You might if you looked like this. And it almost makes me physically sick to say it, but Nicholas never touched me. Never so much just looked at me wrong, and I miss him terribly. I do. I look in mirrors sometimes and imagine how I might have looked. I just want to be normal. I just want kindness to be here and to be here too. I don't think that's a lot to ask. It's like being invisible, you know? I just want you to see me. I just want you to see me. I just want you to look at me. I just want you to make eye contact with me and see me. That's what I wanted for Matthew, but I didn't know how to ask. The note he left on my bedside table was simple. I want to know you, but you have to let me. When there's room in your heart for me, please, call me. I'll be waiting. Love, Matthew. I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. I want to love and to be loved. I want to be seen.
Good morning, campers, and welcome your Camp Sunshine. I'm Gloria. Well, that's Gloria, and I'm your Camp Social Director. Say, are we ready for a fun-filled week or what? You know, Camp Sunshine is about the biggest and best Bible camp this side of Arkansas. You wanna know why? It's because God created it. He was walking around outside Little Rock, saw this place and said, this make a great camp. Yes, he did. It's in the Bible somewhere. No, don't look for it, Lucille. It's a newer version. Summer camps, a time to get away from the house and make some memories. Too bad not all of them are good ones. Camp Sunshine by Ken Bradbury. Dear Mommy and Daddy, this is my first day at camp. I hate it. The social director reminds me of Aunt Midge, the one nobody likes. And my roommate, her name's Margot, and this is her 8th year at camp. She snagged a different boy every year. That's the notion she comes. She says that Christian boys are easier to fool, and their daddies drive really nice cars. We're supposed to meet the athletic director today. His name is Uncle Ernie. I hope he's nice.
Part 2, campers! Let me make one thing clear. God didn't want no limp-wristed whips. When you climb that styrofoam mountain today, I want you to climb like the devil himself was right on your butt. I'm Uncle Ernie, and I'm here to show you God's love through athletics. Ever heard of Gabriel? He's a by golly stomping archangel. I'm not talking about a little precious moment's praise. I'm talking about power. You hear me? I said power. Amen.
Dear Mommy and Daddy, Uncle Ernie is a creep. Today he ran straight into an oak tree to remind us that God's love can protect us from anything. I guess God was looking the other way because Uncle Ernie nearly bashed his brains in. Now not only is he a creep, but a stupid creep. All right, campers! It's our second day of Camp Sunshine. How's everyone doing? All right, we've got a little cancellation. Uncle Ernie, well, he was supposed to go with the Joshua group to learn to make a rope bridge. Uncle Ernie isn't quite feeling himself today. He'll be back tomorrow after brain surgery. Dear Mommy and Daddy, I've got a book to myself now. They caught Margot making out with Skip Henderson during eating flag raising. They're making her wash dishes with a nun for punishment. Dear Spike, Skip. They said I gotta write a lousy letter every day, so I decided I wrote to you because you could barely read anyways. I met this really hot chick named Margot. They caught us making out, but it was totally worth it. Dear Lucille, this is Margot. You've got to get me out of here. I've washed about 600 dishes, and the nun just threatened to kill me. I asked Gloria what a nun was doing in a Baptist church camp. She said that a nun is just an unmarried Baptist. Did you see Skip in that swimsuit? I saw him outside the window and nearly dropped the gravy boat. Sister Dishwasher hailed Mary on me, but the buns on that boy are so worth it. All right, campers, it's that night again. Talent night! All right, first up we've got Uncle Ernie. He wants to talk to you guys about a few things, so let's have him have his moment.
All right, campers, Uncle Ernie's back. Okay, so I know today we're going to talk to you about pain. But if you don't know pain, then you don't truly know God. God created pain. If you're not just about a half bit miserable, then you don't truly know God. Today we're going to play a game. It's called the pain game. Here I have a lit candle.
Dear Mommy and Daddy, do you hate me? Alright, campers, we're back at talent night after a little bit of a secondary stuff, but another cancellation has come up. Uncle Ernie cannot sing the Marines hymn due to third-degree burns on his right hand. But we've got some other neato stuff planned for you guys today. First up, the Isaiah group playing on the spoons. Let's give it up for Isaiah!
Alright, campers, Uncle Ernie's back. It's going to take more than an oak tree and a fire to get me down. Okay, today I want to talk to you about suffering. I know, it's summer camp and the birds are chirping and your hormones are running around like jackrabbits in a bushfire, but today I'm going to self-control, mind over matter. Let me tell you why I sit in the Marine Corps.
Dear Mommy and Daddy, today was kind of uneventful. Margot and Skip were excommunicated from the Baptist church last night. They had some weird ceremony on the softball field where Margot was stripped of all of her Sunday school perfect attendance, and Uncle Ernie baptized Skip in a really cold shower. Gloria Gloria now has listening to the story of Bathsheba as read by Charlton Heston. She says that Charlton Heston is in the Bible, but I can't find him anywhere. She says I need a newer version. Alright, campers! Here we are on our final day of Camp Sunshine. It has been my honor to spend this time with you guys, and I don't know if I can wait a whole year to see you guys again. As you take your final Camp Sunshine Bible quiz, I want you to think of me, Gloria. That's Gloria. And what an inspiration I have been to you all.
Alright, campers, it has been my honor to serve you as athletic director, to take you to the great boot camp in the sky. And I want to apologize to those of you in the Isaiah group for what happened last night. I have eaten glass on many occasions in the service of the Lord, but this was the first time I had ever gotten hiccups. I just heard word that little Marjorie Swenson had most of the fragments removed from her right eye. Anyway, I'd love to see you guys all back next year when the theme is, if Job hadn't suffered, he'd have never made it to the NFL.
Dear Margot, this is Lucille. I'm sending this letter home with your parole officer. He says he'll be staying with you every 2 weeks. I was really sad that you had to leave early. The next camp was coming in as you left. It was the Australians for God powerlifting camp. You would have really liked their outfits. Anyway, I can see Mommy and Daddy come down to Nation Avenue, so I've got to go. I hope they didn't get all of my letters. I'd kind of like to come back in next year. I'm applying for athletic director. As a final show of God's love, Uncle Ernie jumped off the rec hall roof blindfolded. I hope God is forgiving because Uncle Ernie forgot about Sister Philip's barbecue grill. Anyway, love you, Lucille.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome, prospective investors. My name is Jen, and this is my partner, Coy.
Shalom.
Now, before we begin, we want to take a moment to thank Dr. and Mrs. Sid Lipholm for the use of their beautiful apartment. Unfortunately, they're unable to be with us this evening.
They left on a 2-week trip to Israel. Remind me to feed the cat.
Got it. All right. Now, before we begin, we want you all to understand that this is a backers audition.
Which is a presentation of a Broadway musical that we created in hopes that some of you may be interested in investing.
Investing.
Investing, right. Think of it as an investment for your children's education or your old age.
Now, what is this investment, you may ask?
Well, The Big Bang is the most expensive Broadway musical ever written.
It encompasses the entire history of civilization, from the dawn of time to present day.
No expenses were spared.
Budgeted at a low $83 million, which is 83 million reasons why you should invest in our show. 12 hours of pure entertainment showing in 4 3-hour installments.
Ooh.
Of course, we can't do the show in its entirety, so tonight we'll be doing
Highlights. It is with great pride and humiliation that we present. Humility. Right. It is with great pride and humility that we present for your consideration The Big Bang.
It was H.G. Wells that once said it. The history of humans is, in essence, a history of ideas.
I failed history.
I don't know who H.G. Wells is.
The Big Bang by Boy Graham. Act 1, Scene 1. A bare stage, no overture. Lights up, music up, and one big bang.
Enter 40 singers who dance.
And enter 40 dancers who sing.
And 40 singers who...
Well, that is 120 voices who sing in a 16-part harmony. Harmony. Ooh. The history of civilization is told through dance, and blackout lights up and the world begins.
A thunderous voice shatters the silence. Like, let there be light.
Hi, my name's Adam. I was made from a pile of dust. What? Oh, God.
Hi, I'm Eve, and I was, made from his rib?
God put us in this garden and said, I have filled this garden with lots of fruit. Play all day in the sunshine and you can stay in your birthday suits.
Free food and frontal nudity? This must be paradise.
Free food and frontal nudity is not what it's cracked up to be.
I think he's cheating on me with a chimpanzee.
A chimpanzee? That's sick.
Where do you think you're going?
Out.
You're so immature. A snake. Wait, why do you have an apple in your mouth?
Trouble in paradise.
Gross, a talking snake.
You know what to do. All the powers of the universe right there in your hot little hand. Go on, take a bite.
I'm tempted.
You shall listen to Satan.
Who?
Snake Man. You shall listen to Snake Man.
Oh. I don't know.
It's a Granny Smith.
I don't know.
It's a Granny Smith.
I don't.
It's a Granny Smith. Eat it.
Oh, right.
Adam and Eve's weakness brought a curse to all mankind.
Women would forever suffer the pain of childbirth.
And men would forever suffer hearing about it.
Act 1, Scene 2.
A half-finished pyramid comes up to the floor of the stage. The pyramid splits open to reveal the Nile.
Enter Her Serene Highness of all Egypt, the one, the only Queen Nefertiti.
I am Queen Nefertiti, the first and last diva. I don't need a man to define me.
What about King Tut?
King Tut? More like King Butt. And Ramses? Now there's a pharaoh with a narrow mind. Hey, Ramses, everyone thinks your Sphinx stinks. No, honey, I don't need a man to define me. That became clear with my last husband. What was his name again? Oh, yeah, not a lot in common.
We now travel to 1491, Spain, to the court of Ferdinand and Isabella. Picture a splendid castle with painted glass windows and 1,000 lit candles. Columbus is alone with the Queen.
Your Highness, it is such a great honor to be in the presence of such a noble woman, not to mention of great beauty.
Thank you very much.
Your Highness, a woman of your taste and intelligence, your vast knowledge and enormous talent, your elegance and poise, your tact and diplomacy, your ability to handle
Columbus, I'm a very, very busy woman. You got 5 minutes.
Senora, I have a theory. I think the world is round. Out there, over the ocean, riches and wealth abound. If you provide the backing and let my sails go unfurled, you'll go down in history as the woman who founded the new world.
Está loco. My father, may he rest in pieces, always told me that the great big world is flat. I love my people. Nothing comes between us. If you succeed, this can mean a lot to Spain, because the most important thing to me is happiness.
I beg your pardon?
Happiness. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The scene now shifts with the colonies in the 1800s.
The beautiful Pocahontas and the equally gorgeous Minnehaha have come to the village of the Manhattans to go husband hunting. We meet the Indian maidens in the lobby bar of the Algonquin Hotel.
Pocahontas, darling, you look fabulous. I love the one feather.
I was just about to give up on you.
I was detained, darling. Let's just say this isn't the first Manhattan I've had today.
Details.
I have only 3 words to describe him. Ugly. Darling, there's plenty to be had, but nothing worth having.
This trip's been a bust.
Tell me about it. I don't feel like going to the powwow.
What should we do with the tickets?
Scalp them. At this next part, it's called a listicle number, and you're climbing up to the top of this mountain.
Bring, bring,
To the top of...
bring, bring.
Sorry, excuse me. Hello? No, okay, bye. So as I was saying, you're climbing up to the top of this
Who was
mountain. The lit bombs.
And
Anyway,
what did they want?
something about their flight being canceled and they're on their way home. I don't know. But anyway,
They're
this
coming
mountain...
now to all these people?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to speed things up a little bit.
Cut to the Industrial Revolution. The stage fills with steam.
Faster. Should we whip it out?
Fine.
Boy, I meant the Liz.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for our presentation. Before we go, we'd like to let you know that in the Big Bang, we skyrocket through the 20th century by dramatizing
Vietnam.
Son of Sam,
Drug abuse.
Dr. Seuss,
Liposuction.
breast reduction,
Neo-Nazis.
paparazzi,
Interventions.
hair extensions,
Oil spills.
diet pills,
Dr. Spock.
what's up, Doc,
Satellite.
civil rights,
Forrest Gump.
Donald Trump,
Hawaiian Punch.
the Brady Bunch.
All this and more. Won't you please invest in our show?